Hi, Shelly here. For this week's project, I'm playing in my art journal. Easter this week, I was looking through some of my inspiration things on Pinterest, and I saw some different crosses and thought, it'd be kind of neat to do a textured cross out of textured paste and see if I could embed some gel prints in the texture, and so that's what I'm going to attempt to do today. I'm not exactly sure of all the details. I'm going to figure it out as I go along, like I usually do. Good, bad. I'm not sure how it's going to work, but that's the plan as of right now. I picked out a few gel prints that I think I'm going to use, but I'll start off with these Bible pages. And a bunch of old Bibles that a church was throwing out when they were replacing their Bibles years ago. So I still have those, and I like to use those in a God-honoring way in my art. And I'm also using an old hymnal that I acquired the same way. Once I get my pages torn and decide where I want to put them down, I will start applying everything with some Mod Podge. About as fast as I got my edges cleaned up with an X-Acto knife, I decide to add some stenciled tissue paper on top. At this point, I still think I'm going to use these papers, and I want to use some of the colors that are in the papers for my background paint. I'm using some water, as I often do, just so that I want to see what's in my background. I love my background, and so the water just helps make my paint more transparent so that I can see all that goodness in the background. I have a new flower stencil that I created this week that I'm excited to try out. So I mix up some of my magenta with bright red, and then I'm going to use a dauber to stencil on lightly. I don't want them to be opaque, I just want them to be an accent color on top. I'm just going to kind of eye the placement of my cross. Like I said, I really want it to be rough, and so I'm just going to kind of make a cross here, and then you'll see me add a little extra here and there, make it a little wider. Just having fun, and this is so easy. I don't know if you've ever if you use modeling paste on a regular basis, but I just enjoy it so much. I use it in a lot of my art because of that. And I really like it when I get to just be rough with it, and I don't have to worry about it being smooth and pretty. And so this is especially fun for me. Because this is super thick, I let it dry overnight. It is still not 100% dry, but it's dry enough for me to come in and start working with it a little bit, clipping off those really high pointy edges. I want all that luscious texture, but I want to make sure that anything that's too tall, that I just take that down just a little bit. I decided I better put a coat of paint down so that as the paper strips don't cover all of it. I think I'd rather have the blue showing through rather than the white. I'm really having to work to get down and get all the grooves and cleaning up some areas as I go that I need to do to make sure that all that white is covered. And then I'll add in a little bit of darker blue here and there as I go to make sure that it's not so one-dimensional looking. Now is the point where I'm rethinking my papers. I don't know about you, but I love gel printing and I love using my gel prints in my art, and I love touching them and going through them and figuring out what goes together. I just really enjoy this process. At this point, I'm still thinking I need 3 different coordinating papers. I start cutting some thin strips of my papers, and I don't know why I've never realized it before, but finally I'm glad I did realize that if I flip my deli papers over so that I'm not trying to cut on the paint side, they cut so much better. And then, even though I'm not going to use it at this point, I still think I'm going to use this blue stenciled tissue paper. And I'm going to try to cut it on my cutter, and it does not go well. So I wind up doing it with scissors. And, but then I decide it's way too big for what I'm doing. I don't want that. So I did all this for nothing, but I thought I would leave it in so that you could see the process that I go through. It's not always pretty, that's for sure. I'm continuing on with my little strips of paper, and I'm going to really speed this up because it took me a while to get everything cut. And then, of course, all these papers that I'm not going to use. At first, I think I'm going to use these long strips, and then I think better of it and decide I better cut them down into more manageable pieces. So I'm starting in with my 3 different papers, and I'm going to quickly realize that I'm not liking this. So I'm going to grab a needle nose tweezer, and at least that's what I call it. And then I'm going to just remove those pieces that I've already put in that are not the pink. I do like the pink, and that's what I'm going to go with. The key to this is to really make sure I'm using a brush that I've used to glue before, and I'm just really pushing down hard to get that paper down in those grooves so that it will stick and kind of conform to the texture. I decided to go do the sideways first and then go from the top down so that I've got no break from the top down. Does that make sense? Although I do realize that on the real cross, I believe that the sideways beam would have been in front. But I felt for what I'm doing, this suits my purposes better. Got a Bible verse that I love that I decide to stick on kind of at an angle here just for a little extra something. And then I'll put a coat of Mod Podge over everything, and then use a couple of baby wipes to tap all over just to make sure my texture is the same everywhere and everything's nice and even. Now to finish things off, I'm just going to go in with a little bit of a white and of course water, and just highlight around the cross a little bit more and push some spots into the background. Then I grab a liner brush and go in with a little bit of white here and there on my cross, just for some little highlight. Well, that's my page. I'm going to hold it up here so you can see the texture a little bit better. I'm really pleased at how it turned out. It was super fun to do, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed it as well, and I hope you'll join me in my next video. Bye for now.